Okay. Chazan Alex Jacobowitz, last year you already showed us the drafts. It was not yet a real thing, and a heavy and a wonderful book as it is right now. I think a first time project of really not just photographing but mapping so many synagogues around Germany. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, leave the light on for a moment because I need to do a bit of a prelude. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure, a machaya, a kavod to be here. Not only because so many nice people are here, but many of you have actually participated, some more actively, some more passively, inside the book. I wrote about the convention last year. That's also mentioned here as the Synagogue in Mannheim is. So we're all kind of players in this. First of all, my name is Alex Jacobowitz. I originally come from New York. I've been very active as a musician, not exclusively as a cantor, but mostly as a musician in Germany for many years. Some of you know me in that way. And about 10 years ago, I auditioned successfully for the Zentralrat Kunstkatalog. I think everybody knows what that is?
Yeah.
Not everybody. Basically, the organization that represents liaison between the Landesverbände and the German government is the Zentralrat. So I was successful in having concerts created for Jewish communities around Germany, but there are preconditions. The preconditions are that although your concerts are paid for by the federal government and you're chosen to do concerts among the Jewish communities in Germany, you are not allowed to contact the communities to organize concerts. Strictly forbidden. Why? Because it has to be seen as being independent between the Jewish communities and the Zentralrat. We artists, hands off. So what I did is I said, I want to contact the synagogues and the former synagogues to do concerts, to play music, authentic music in an authentic place. The answer that I got back shocked me. The Secretary General of the Zentralrat said, we are the Zentralrat der Juden in Deutschland, nicht von Synagogen und schon gar nicht von ehemaligen Synagogen. So I knew that I needed to find a solution. I decided, where do I do concerts? I did Google searches. I found 20,000 hits in the internet for former synagogues. But there is no registry, there is no index, there is no list.
Nothing.
Not at the land level, not at the country level, there is no organization whatsoever. And so I decided I was going to start making my own little list. I had a list which started out as 150 plus or minus synagogues in Germany. And I, of course, went to the Zentralrat to make the list of synagogues that they already had, active synagogues, but not all the active synagogues, and then the tremendous number of former synagogues, which dwarf the active synagogues by far.
Yeah.
Most of you probably don't know that anywhere you are in Germany, you are only minutes away from either a synagogue or a former synagogue. But there's no way to know that unless you already know it exists.
Right.
This makes things very, very difficult and painful.
Yeah.
So we'll have to questions at the end. We're a
Most
little
of
bit late.
these former synagogues, in my community, there's one in Assenheim. It has been, first of all, it was
We'll have to do this at the end.
Yeah,
Sorry, we
yeah.
have time.
Later, please.
Okay.
All questions are very welcome, but we have to do this at the later because we're on a bit of time pressure. So first of all, there were before Kristallnacht 2,800 synagogues in Germany. 2,800. Fully half of them were destroyed, but only half, not more. That means that at the end of the Second World War, there were still 1,400 synagogues, or former synagogues, still standing on German lands. There was no interest in maintaining those synagogues, so they decayed, both in East Germany and in West Germany, so we lost another 650 synagogues. Now, today, there are approximately 800 structures that are synagogues, or were synagogues at one time, and only about 180 that are active synagogues in some way. But the point is that means that who's taking care of the former synagogues? And more importantly, who's taking care of the former synagogue culture? Who decides who is responsible for maintaining synagogue culture? And who decides who decides? These are important questions. So I decided I'm going to make a list. My publisher, Hendrik & Hendrik in Leipzig, supported me doing the first comprehensive list. It doesn't mean all the synagogues, but it does mean all the synagogue styles over the past 1,000 years. The things that stand today, the things that you can jump in a car and visit in just an hour or 2 hours in any direction. So I have important questions. I want to share this with you because you're important to me, particularly in this endeavor. I will ask you simple questions. I would like simple answers, basically by raising hands. Who knows where this is? One. Local kach. Where is this? Görlitz. Görlitz is on the.
I knew that.
Okay. Görlitz is on the former. It used to be central Germany. Now it's on the border between Germany and Poland. And basically, the city, like Berlin, was split down the middle. This was on the western side. You can see that this was a truly beautiful synagogue. But after the war, although it had been damaged in Kristallnacht, it wasn't really destroyed. But nobody was in any great rush to renovate it either. It sat there dilapidated 10 years, 20, 30 years. They talked about lots of programs to do it. Turn it into a concert hall. Turn it into a gymnastics room. Anything. But nothing happened. Finally, thank God, I had the opportunity. I had an invitation to meet with the Bundestagsabgeordneter in the Bundestag, the person responsible for Görlitz. And I said, I think something should be done with this. He said, what is a New York Jew doing interested in a Görlitz synagogue? I said, because you don't understand. This has little to do with Görlitz. This has much to do with the world of Jews.
Yes.
He took it seriously. And later on, he became the prime minister of Saxony and got the money required, millions of euros, 12.6, to renovate the synagogue before they had a clue about what should be done with it. But they decided it should be renovated. Now, if you look here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you can't see this well, 5, 6, 7, 8 lions. That's an architectural innovation. Why are these lions here? Where are the lions normally in a synagogue? On the paroches, that's right. Normally, to take the place of, in the biblical, angels sitting on top of the Bundeslade, facing each other, right? It becomes the lions on the paroches, but they decided, the non-Jewish architects, in cooperation with the VAD, that they would not only put them here on the paroches, they would put it on a frieze going around the entire synagogue, so everybody could enjoy the lions. The architect who survived his father-in-law's demise became a member of the Nazi Party. It's probably the reason that the synagogue was not destroyed, because in the time that the protocols were written, that the city of Görlitz bought this for basically an apple and an egg, as they say in German, it was going to be torn down and turned into a swimming pool. So why not? Probably because the architect had become a member of the Nazi Party. He had a deal with the mayor to turn it into something else. But the problem is the architect died in the middle of the Second World War and everybody was paralyzed. Nobody knew what to do with it. So the arguments came about, what could, what should, what must be done with a former synagogue where there is no Jewish community. 2005, I got involved in Görlitz and created a small Jewish community. We fought to do this and we finally had the first prayer service here after 80 years.
But you were already in the 80s, in the early 80s, I remember very well in Görlitz, a group of people who wanted to rebuild and reconstruct.
They didn't
and
do it.
Save.
It didn't happen.
But it was
I understand. We can talk about this later.
Movement.
There was a lot of people from the Christian side because they thought there should be something done that remembered the Jewish community that was there. But they never had political support, they never had financial support, and once again, the government does not get involved in these things at all. So if you have 5 or 50 or 500 people with a good idea, but without the political, financial, emotional backing, nothing happens. It's paralyzed until somebody comes along. And sometimes that something is a bolt of Jewish lightning to make people move. It doesn't happen easily, but I am happy to say that you can. By proof, one person can change the destiny of one of these synagogues. And there are hundreds of them. And as I would like to know, how many of you have already been in 20 German synagogues? How many of you have been in 40 German synagogues?
I
I
guess.
didn't count them.
How many have been in 100 German synagogues?
You win.
How many have been in 200 German synagogues? These are all amazing, and they are all different. And I'm not speaking as an architect. That's not so interesting to me. The walls, historically, were not determined by Jews. The walls of the synagogues were primarily determined by non-Jewish architects because the non-Jewish architects were allowed to study in the universities where the Jews weren't. However, the inside of the synagogues were determined completely by the Jewish communities, and that's why the Jewish culture is not so importantly tied to the external architecture, but rather the inner architecture, what I call the synagogue culture. When you start to get to see these things with practiced eyes, you start to see that this network here, this is the network that used to be on the Mechitza. The architects took it from the Mechitza and they put it up here. What's on the other side of this lattice?
Yeah.
The organ room with the choir. So there's innovation based on tradition, but you have to treat your eyes to what you're seeing in order to understand it. Okay, so this is Görlitz, and behind the Aron HaKodesh, this is the only one in Germany that I've been able to find, where it's written in 2 languages. It says, Shivit Hashem Lenegdi Tamid, and they use Luther's translation, Ich hat Gott stets vor Augen. In every other Kaporis, it's written as Hebrew, not in Hebrew and German. Okay, the next one, please. Who knows where this is? Hands up, please. Just hands up, just hands up. 1, 2, 3. Where is this?
Hannover.
Hanover. Okay. Who's the architect? And why is this important?
Okay.
Who's the architect and why is this important? Who? No. That's important, but not here. This is Hermann Gutmann. Why is Hermann Gutmann important? He's an Auschwitz survivor. After the war, when there was a need for new synagogues to be built, the German government did this almost exclusively, as far as they could, in combination with Jewish architects. And not just Jewish architects, but people who had a real feel for Jewish culture and building history. He was the #1 post-war Jewish architect in combination with Helmut Goldschmidt. Who did Helmut Goldschmidt build? What? Does anybody know the name Helmut Goldschmidt? Nothing. Okay. Hermann Gutmann built a lot of synagogues, particularly in southern Germany. Where is this? Hanover. It's not in southern Germany, but they did go beyond their zones. What's really super interesting about this synagogue? Who can you might not see it with the same eyes. This is from 1965.
It looks like a church.
It looks like a church, that's right. What else? Okay, first of all, the colored windows.
Bima is in the middle.
You have the bima in the middle.
You have the
not
bima
as
in the middle?
any
Not
the
up
the bima at the front side, like in church.
Remember that the bima in this direction means Orthodox, right?
Yeah.
If it was turned around, sorry, yes, turn on the lights, thank you. Okay. And now, one of the things that's very important is that the lot itself was not square, so they had to build it a little bit like a piece of pie. You can see that, yeah? Fantastic. Now, check this out. You see this? The white thing up there?
Yeah.
That's what I call the Nierentisch. What is this Nierentisch doing there?
Acoustics.
Acoustics? It is not. What is it? It is the Amud Ha'anan. It's the pillar of cloud that accompanied the Jews in the desert architecturally. Now, musicians think it's a reflecting shell. Of course, because that would make sense, right? But it's not. We have to remember that we are taking old ideas of the synagogue, particularly as composed in Exodus, the Mishkan, the Mizbeach, and we are turning them into modern concepts according to the Jews who knew this. This is the first time that Jewish-built architecture in Germany is supported at all levels. And this means they can be creative using the materials and the styles of that time, but being in a traditional context. This is fantastic because you see You see, you have the colored windows that would be acceptable to the Christian neighbors, but at the same time, this is like the similar, the 8-sided, the octagonal bima that you would find in many synagogues throughout Germany. But you have to have the eye to see the octagonal form. Okay, so let's move on, please. Everybody knows this, right? Hands, who knows this? One?
It's Köln, right?
Cologne. Okay, who knows the background of this fantastic structure? 1899, it was built, destroyed by the Nazis, but not completely carried away, and it got rebuilt as the... Were you okay?
Yeah, it's good.
As the German chancellor picks his friend from Cologne, Helmut Goldschmidt, who is another Auschwitz survivor,
Helmut
an
or
architect
Helmut?
and musician, to rebuild the Köln synagogue in Roonstrasse. This is the major synagogue.
Alles in der Wohnstraße.
Okay, what do we notice about this? If the other one looked like a church, Kal Vachomer, right?
Yeah.
You see the cathedral rosettes on both sides. You see the Rundbogen right here, right? It's almost like a Catholic church. Almost. Lahavdil ben Kodesh
So,
V'chol.
in Cologne.
But you do see the fact that this is not in the middle and does resemble somewhat almost a concert hall.
And there's no Ezrat Nashim.
There is behind.
There is.
Oh, behind.
Here's where I'm standing. The Ezras Nashim is
I
above
see,
me
okay.
and behind.
Okay.
Okay? So I wanted to point out that you're seeing different structures reflecting, this is neo-Romanesque, right? You see lots of different styles. We have a modern so far, we have a neoclassical, and now we have a Romanesque or neo-Romanesque. Next one, please.
The Köln synagogue survived the war.
Yeah, the outside did, but it was more or less destroyed on the inside. So structurally, it was sound, but the inside was no longer usable. Okay? So I'm sure many of you know this. I'm sure nobody knows the story behind it. There were 4 synagogues of this size in Frankfurt until the destruction of Reichskristallnacht, Pogromnacht, Kristallnacht. This is the one that survived. Does anybody know who the architect was? Terrible story. Franz Ruppler was a Nazi. Not only was he a Nazi, he had been specially chosen as a young man with talent to help build this synagogue back in the early days, 1908, with Willie, I forget his last name, to create the beautiful synagogue in Mainz, right? How did he repay the Jewish community for the trust in this young man building the synagogue? He joined the Nazi Party, and when 2 Berlin Jews were trying to get away to Luxembourg, where he lived, he helped murder them. But because Luxembourg was outside of this group, he was never charged with murder. So the point is that this wonderful Byzantine, eclectic mixture of all kinds of interesting architectural styles was built by somebody who later became a Nazi. Nobody wants to know this because it's such a beautiful place. This was also wrecked during the Second World War, but not destroyed, renovated. Among the first synagogues, 1950, it was already reopened after the renovations, right? Along this beautiful chandelier, which I talked about. Okay, so we're talking about now some more classical styles. You see, once again, our favorite Mr. Lion here, right, with the Kosher Mishpat. So once again, the people who built these, the non-Jews who built the synagogues, could have never done this without the explicit and intensive cooperation of the Jewish communities, not only because of aesthetics, but because they wanted to get it right. What an architectural style is doesn't matter in halacha, but there are certain things that will trade across certain kinds of flexibilities and potential. And of course, so you know about the organ. This used to be a Reform synagogue. After the war, there were no Reform Jews left. It became Orthodox. The organ was moved to in the women's section where it wouldn't bother anybody. As I asked the gabbai once there, do you use the organ?
Hell no.
No,
Would you like to hear his answer?
no.
He said it would cost them 6 figures to fix the organ for the amount of work that would cost. And the little amount that it would be played, it wasn't worth it for the community. He said once they actually tried to start it up, he said it went via alte Yid. Okay, next one please. Okay, nobody knows this, I'll bet. Who knows this?
Is it Horb?
Where?
In Hessen, Horb or something like that.
That's kind of right,
Or
but
it's
it's
similar.
wrong,
Okay.
okay? No, you're on the right path, but you're in the wrong country.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, nobody has ever seen this thing real. There was a wonderful, beautiful, extraordinary culture in Poland of painted wooden synagogues. Ornate like there's nothing else you've ever seen in Judaism. Every single one of those 200 synagogues, hundreds of years old, was burned to the ground. However, some of them have been documented before they were destroyed in black and white photography, which gave some places the ability to reconstruct replicas of these synagogues. One of them, Horb, which exists, is not in Germany. It belongs to the Bamberg, city of Bamberg, and is on permanent loan to the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. So you would see it and you think Jerusalem, but no, it's
I
a
saw something
German.
like this in Warsaw, in the Jewish.
That's the same, right? But that is called Dwujic, and Dwujic was painted by 50 volunteer students at an art school in Boston who flew over to paint the whole thing. And there's also one like that in Israel called Chodorov inside the Tel Aviv Museum. So there are these replicas, they do exist, but this is an original in the style of Eliezer Sussman, which means that these are the holes that you would have that women could see through and people could breathe. Here you have the stars that were painted by hand inside the Aron HaKodesh. You have the Lechem Panim on the side, the menorah, and text throughout, painted with extraordinary craftsmanship. When the Jewish community of this place, Unterlimpor, no longer existed, they sold that synagogue, the wooden synagogue, to a museum. The museum knew it would be destroyed by the Nazis, so they took it apart and they hid it in the basement until afterward. It now stands as a monument to an entire art form that the German Jews had imported because they loved this artistic work from Poland so well that they brought some artists from Ukraine, from Poland, to have them paint their synagogues. And nobody knows this. The Polish variation on German territory. This now only exists in a museum, the Schwäbisch Hall Museum. Okay, next please. One of my favorites. Everybody knows my favorite Catholic church. I had the honor 20 years ago to lead the Yomim Noraim in this marvelous church. This is one of the most extraordinary things you'll ever see. How many people have actually been inside the Augsburg Shul? Not enough. This is clearly the #1 synagogue in southern Germany, not only because of its size, because of the extraordinary detail. The person who was the architect was pre-war Fritz Landauer. Fritz Landauer also developed the Bauhaus synagogue in Plauen that was burned down after only 8 years of action. And Fritz Landauer was forced to immigrate to London, where he designed further synagogues in London. I'm sorry, am I taking up too much air?
Yes.
Now, if you really get close to this, you can see how much of the renovations have been done. The synagogue was too big, too heavy, too costly to actually blow up and carry off, so the Nazis wanted to use it for storage. There is, of course, a small weekday synagogue off to the side, so the Jewish community, in normal circumstances, uses the small synagogue, which was renovated by Hermann Gutmann. Right? So we have that ability to have some synagogues that have dual purpose. Sometimes on the high holidays when there's a lot of people there and a lot of security, it gets used as a synagogue. When not, it's primarily a museum where classes come in all day long, all night long, where you have lots and lots of things displayed for the southern German Jewish Judaica, silver, Sifrei Torah, everything possible. So it's a very important agent for the acclimation of young people to understand what Judaism is and not what somebody thinks it might have been. So it's a wonderful place that has dual usage. And of course, the problem is that with all this marriage of different kinds of ideas, architectural as well as religious, many people won't understand it. And this really does deserve, as so many synagogues do, a better future than it's been treated up until now. My favorite tefillin.
That's mine.
Okay, who knows this? Okay, everybody. Where is this? München, Hauptstadt der Bewegung. Now I have a really interesting thing. Who notices two of the absolute unbelievable things about this structure? There are two really, truly amazing things about this that nobody's gonna, probably not even gonna get right from the beginning.
Jerusalem stone.
What?
Jerusalem stone.
Jerusalem stone, that's one of them, Jerusalem style stone.
Buildings.
But that's not what I would really want to point out that makes it really special.
These are 3 buildings, so it's also the museum and the.
Okay, yeah, but that's nothing to do with this structure in itself.
My favorite is the underground tunnel.
The underground
You can
tunnel?
Go in and out from.
Okay, so first of all, this is the only synagogue in Germany that needs its own special secret in and out. 32 meters, the so-called tunnel der Erinnerung, where you cannot get in here. There is no entrance door. You have to go through security in the other building and to get out. These look like doors, that's only for freaking out the goyim. This is an emergency exit, but they don't use it because of security
Very
reasons.
sad, actually.
Now, because of security reasons, remember, there wasn't a potential attack on the president of Germany, Roman Herzog, 2003. 8 people went to jail for long prison terms for setting up explosives in this building when it was still being set up. So nobody has ever wanted to see a major new building. And this is the first thing I'm going to tell you that's really, really stupid, but you'll start to figure it out. We saw in Frankfurt, the synagogue was renovated in 1950. We saw in Hanover, the synagogue was newly built 1965. When was the synagogue in Munich built?
2000.
Earlier. 2000,
Something.
2006. 2006. This is the last synagogue in any major city to be built. Why? There was no political desire to do it. After Munich had to explain to the world what happened at the Olympiada, they understood they could not screw up on security again.
Yeah, right.
So the Jewish community that had 3 regular synagogues and wanted a major synagogue forever, like everybody else had, Bonn, 1959, Paderborn, 1958, even Bielefeld has something earlier than that. No, Munich was the last city to get a synagogue. Hamburg, 1960. Fasanenstraße, 1959. Why did this take another 50 years? Because nobody wanted it. That's why there are no windows here. Anybody notice there are no windows here?
It's a kind of a shame, this synagogue, because it's only security and now just open synagogue.
This is not a normal thing.
Shame.
This is not a normal place. They did not want to take a chance of a security lapse, so they have more security there than any other place in Germany. There are no windows to avoid the danger. And this is a very complicated issue because the Jewish community itself is too poor to actually afford such a magnificent building. You had to wait until the political stars aligned so that everybody could get these things in order. The policy, meaning the politics, the security, and the Jewish community had to position themselves, but it took 50 years longer than every other place. That's not a small thing, that's a big thing. Okay, next please. Is this interesting to you?
Yeah.
No, very, please stop. No,
Okay,
continue.
everybody knows this, I'm sure.
Ah, stimmt. Yeah.
Who knows this?
Yeah, I was very.
Who was inside?
I was.
What's the extraordinary thing about this building?
Kedusha.
It's like the crooked house.
Say it again.
Kedusha.
Kedusha. Tell us more about
Very
Kedusha.
subjective.
I was at the board in Mainz at
No,
this
no,
time.
tell us about it, tell us about
It is the architect, I don't remember.
Manuel Herz.
Manuel Herz built the whole synagogue on the Jewish word Kedusha, which is to be seen from above.
It's not to see. You can see it also at this level. So the 5 letters of Kedusha become architectural objects inside this. Manuel Herz designed this synagogue in what we call deconstructionist style. Deconstructionist style is the style of Daniel Libeskind, who was his teacher. Get it? So the Jewish Museum in Berlin that opened in 2001 by the teacher was followed by the synagogue in 2010 by the student. And many people love this because it's so radical. It's not square. It's not anything that you would normally expect. Why? Because finally Jews are taking advantage of their own destiny and their own architecture to say what they feel is an authentic Jewish message. That is one of the reasons that this takes some getting used to. On top of that, this is built on synagogue plots next to the remains of the old Mainz synagogue. The juxtaposition can be ignored by no one. Next, please. Are we on time? We okay?
I don't want to continue to
Okay, anybody know this guy? Wait.
Heidelberg? Nein.
Yes.
Heidelberg.
Heidelberg. What is special about this synagogue? It was just
Rabbi
celebrated
Janusz.
his 32nd anniversary.
It's a round synagogue.
Okay, it's a round synagogue. This is the first one we've seen, right? A round synagogue. We haven't seen that yet. Although the Görlitz one was partially round as far as the prayer room, but not the synagogue itself. Okay, so here we have another Jewish architect. Yay! But it's the next generation. It's not Goldschmidt. It's not Gutmann. It is the one who did 10 synagogues in Germany today. Jacobi, but Jacobi the son, right? So this is Alfred Jacobi, who has done 10 synagogues in Germany and therefore has become the #1 Jewish architect. And of course, he's not trying to make a physical statement. He's just trying to hold earth and heaven together by making a synagogue that is somehow going to be practicable for the people who are living there, primarily Russian Jews. So the message is somewhat more modest. This is a special thing, not only because it's round or the color scheme, but because here you have an Ezras Nashim and a Mechitza. Why would you have an Ezras Nashim and a Mechitza?
Old ladies which cannot climb upstairs.
Exactly. Now they need to climb these stairs, but this is slightly before the Zugänglichkeit, for people who are handicapped. So they have the option of accommodating all the people here. Now this synagogue was a big problem, and there was a lot of machlokas in the beginning between the people who are in charge of the Vad and the architect and the Kehila and the city and the security. It took them much longer. It took them about 20 years to get the whole thing done. But there are synagogues that take even longer, like the one in Potsdam. We're not going to go there, right? Okay, so this is Heidelberg. Once again, Alfred Jacobi. He's a wonderful person. I had the opportunity to interview him for my book because it's important to know what Jewish architects are having to say. Not only as architects, but also as Jews. He is the head of the Jewish community in Offenbach, in the synagogue that he redesigned.
Oh.
Okay, next please.
Okay, 10 more minutes.
10 minutes, okay. I'll try to keep it interesting.
Oh,
Okay.
it's fascinating.
It
This,
is a-
wait a second, who knows this? Nobody?
So nice.
Do you know it or you not know it? That's not a very convincing
From
hand.
the outside.
Okay, from the outside. Okay, so who can tell me something about this? If you don't know where it is, what do you see right away?
It's a lineage round.
Round as well.
It looks like a church, like an old church.
No, it's no.
This is a very unique synagogue in all of Germany, not only because of the walls. Number one, it is round. Yes, that's true. This was a gift of the Duke of Anhalt for his Jewish subjects. He built a synagogue according to their needs, and he gave it to them. This never happened in the history of Germany.
Where is this, Heinz?
This is in Wörlitz in Sachsen-Anhalt. Check this out. Check this out. Like it says, according to Joseph Karo in the Shulchan Aruch, a synagogue has to have windows, so the prayer goes out, and am besten wäre 12.
12, yeah.
Why 12 windows? Every tribe has its own way of davening. So he did this. He put up 12 oculises, 12 oculi, and pilasters, pillars between each of them. So it is a quasi-classical style with an extra entrance for the men, an extra entrance for the women, and the entrance to the mikveh. It's built on a lake. And this is from the city side, and the opposite side is the lake side. And people who write about the synagogue didn't understand that this was a synagogue. They said it was probably not built as a synagogue without understanding what the definition of a mikveh is. Think about what it means to have a kosher mikveh in the middle of a synagogue in Sachsen-Anhalt. Gorgeous, but the synagogue community got smaller and smaller. They sold the building to the Jewish community in Dessau, who had it stolen from them by the Nazis after the war. The state of Sachsen-Anhalt decided to renovate it. It is today a Jewish museum, and it is absolutely gorgeous with the best view of the lake. You can imagine. And this was a gift of royalty to Jews. Never happened again.
You should actually check that it was built in 1789,
thank you.
which is
It
like,
was a-
1790, yeah.
yeah.
It was
so-
built then, but it wasn't finished until the following
Yeah,
year.
but the time,
but
that's
It's
that's
more-
astonishing.
Yes, it is. It is. Okay, next please. Everybody knows this.
Airport.
Yeah, for,
It's
Okay.
Erfurt.
What do you notice interesting about this picture? This is generally considered to be the oldest synagogue in Germany, but it's not. People make different claims. This was a synagogue from the 1090s, but it has not been a synagogue in about 700 years. So, even so, the point is that the building stood here for so long and nobody knew about what it was. Only recently have they discovered that a wall.
No, that's not true. The people in Erfurt knew it.
No, they didn't.
So
I'm the
I
one that
heard
knows
this story
from
already
1980.
I heard this story already in the early 80s, in the late 70s.
It only started the supposition in the 1980s that this could have been, but then it had to be tested. So it took about 10 years for them to determine it, and then they discovered the Erfurter Schatz, and the Erfurter Schatz needed a place, and so now the Erfurter Schatz, do you know about this?
But the story was in
Thousands- Thousands of coins that they discovered about 40 meters in the ground, probably from a wealthy Jew who hid the things because he was afraid something was going to happen, and it probably did. And there are marvelous wedding rings. There's only 3 of these that are known that people would lend to other people for the wedding, made of gold. And this is now an exhibit. So this former synagogue is now a museum on the lowest level for Judaica that was discovered in the old city of Erfurt.
where is it?
Erfurt. This is the capital of Thuringia. Next, please. Okay, who knows this? One? No, not even close.
Wow.
Hamburg, that's right. What's special about this synagogue? It's the only. Invited, that's right.
Yes, the Orthodox.
Okay, so, no.
It has 2 bima, what? No.
Okay, so first of all, 1960, no, 1960 from a non-Jewish architect. It's the only synagogue in Germany that has 5 sides.
5 sides.
5 sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That is.
Like the inside of a star, but not a Jewish star. So this also has particular security problems, but the architect wanted to say something modern, right? But not so modern that it becomes unintelligible. We have this is the women's section with a corner, right? Because of the 5 walls. And the extraordinary glasswork was really, they outdid themselves for this. They got a special artist who had done 32 churches, and they got him to do the windows for this, the most famous, largest, most important synagogue in Hamburg. Don't take it personally. Who knows this? Let's be careful. Let's get it right. What's the correct name of this synagogue? The correct name?
Neue Synagoge.
What's the old one?
It was here in Rosenstraße was the old one, but I don't remember. It was destroyed.
Yeah,
The old one is in Heidereutegasse, which was not destroyed until the Second World War. So here's a very quick, I have to do this very quickly. The Jews of Vienna were thrown out in 1670, 1671. The King of Prussia accepted 50 Jews in Berlin from Vienna with one precondition. Precondition was they will not be allowed to build a synagogue. Think about that. 40 years later, they are allowed to incorporate themselves as a religious group, 1712. 2 years later, they build their first synagogue, 1714. That is the sogenannte Old Synagogue. 160 years until they get the permission to build the new
Germany.
synagogue. 160 years. So when they got the permission to build this one, they built it with space for over 3,000 people. Why? Because they never knew if they would get another permit to build a synagogue. Remember, there was still a Kaiser at the time that the synagogue was built. Now it's a very, very small synagogue, right? The facade is original, the rest of it has been destroyed and rebuilt. So this is a remnant of what used to be the second largest synagogue in Europe. You have to know, if it's called the new one, you have to know the line of Berlin's Jews in order to get the bigger picture. Next, please. This is the oldest synagogue in Germany. Which, no? Where?
Was it Steyr?
Who knows? This has been torn down 3 times and rebuilt 3 times. Okay, first of all, you notice this very special pillar in the middle? That's very unusual because that's medieval. This is the remaking of the oldest synagogue in Germany in Worms. But you have to understand, it was torn down during the Crusades and then rebuilt 1175 with a women's section, 1175.
Yeah.
Then again, it was torn down in the Middle Ages and then rebuilt. Then the Nazis not only tore it down, then they detonated it on top of it to make it unusable. The Stadtarchivar, the person in charge of the city's history, knew where the parts of the stones of the synagogue had been carried off. And after the war in 1961, they took the stones back and rebuilt the synagogue again. Now, it's not primarily a synagogue today, it's primarily a museum, but it's in the property of the Jewish community of Mainz, about 1 hour more or less north, who sends a minyan once a month here to have a regular davening, as well as the people who go, what's no mean? In other words, and also people are coming to be close to Rashi, because the Rashi chapel is just off the side here. So getting close to this origin and to say, yes, the synagogue has been there for coming up on 1,000 years with a few interruptions. This is also part of synagogue culture. Next.
2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Ah.
Okay. Notice the parochas. Notice the Ner Tamid. Notice the Mechitza.
Is that Tesla synagogue?
This is a radical. This is a.
Looks like an operational.
Well, actually, I call it Saint Ikea.
I synagogue.
Okay, the point is that I was told that this lighting fabric is to replace the idea of the Ner Tamid, and I was told I was not allowed to say this in my book, so I'll tell it to you. While I was interviewing Rabbi Nechama, he told me very clearly, and this goes no further than this room, my grandfather would have called, no, my father would have called this Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem.
Very subjective.
So, I'm not here to make decisions. I'm here to document. The Nazis destroyed 16,500 synagogues. Nobody knows, or almost nobody knows, that there are more synagogues today extant on German lands than there are in the rest of Eastern Europe. There are still about 800 buildings, and once again, about 150 to 180 are used at least partly as synagogues. And your job, ladies and gentlemen, friends, is not only to sing the right notes, but to bring the right spirit in each of these places. And I beg you, give the synagogues what they deserve. Learn what they are, internalize synagogue culture, and give it back. Thank you.
I would like to thank you, first of all, for doing this work, and for having such a fascinating lecture. And I think both sides could have gone on forever, but we have more program. But
I have
think
to say
you
one
brought
thing
a
for 20
few
seconds.
copies. You brought a few
I brought a few
copies
copies,
here.
but outside of that, there's something I really find is important to tell. Over the past 6 weeks, I got a message from the German government. They have placed an order with my publisher for 450 copies of this book. That's about 50,000, and they are granting a copy to every one of the Gedenkstätte in Germany, including the concentration camps. This has, in 6 months, become a standard work.
Wow.
And that means, no, that's not good. That means nobody's doing the work that needs to be done. If I can do this, anybody can do this. But it needs to be done. So everybody find that part that needs to be chronicled, documented, published, and make it known so that people will know how they move on to the next generation.
Yeah. Now let me, you know that I like to sell stuff. So truly I bought 2 copies, and there's also a very practical side to the book, which is interesting for everybody, and thank you for that. At the end of every synagogue story, you have also the coordinates, the telephone number, the address, who you can talk to. So it has also a very practical and interesting side. The photos are absolutely beautiful, and I think you deserve to have it as a standard work. It definitely is, and I wish you more books like this, more beautiful projects.
Chazak, chazak.
Yeah.